Hello, we are very few. It's going to be very intimate.
Intimate is fine. We're online as well.
Yes. I'm very happy to be here with Laurent Favre, a friend and someone who tries to restart his watch brand, and we're going to talk about that. Going to quickly introduce myself, why I'm here, because I like very much what he does. And by coincidence, when he started the first time in 2010, I was also launching a brand for someone else, and it was called Laurent Ferrier. And so we met already back then, and I'm active in the watch industry, and one of the many things I do, I co-write the annual Morgan Stanley report on the watch industry. So, Laurent, would like that you introduce yourself, and what is the most interesting part of it is you're going to tell us, apart that you have a very, very long family history and legacy, how you came to be in the watch industry and do watches.
Well, I'm Laurent Favre. I'm the 10th generation of watchmaker in my family. And at some point, there was nobody in my generation who was interested in watches. I grew up in this industry. And at some point, I decided that I needed to take the mission of continuing my tradition, which I did in 2010 by making my first watch. So basically, as a watchmaker, the first thing you do as an initiation is make your first watch, which I did. So our tradition spans over 3 centuries. It started in 1718, and it's been continued from father to son, which is called in some countries a living patrimony, which I incarnate. So this is why I went into watchmaking. But above all, I'm a fan of the product. I love the product, I love the watch, and this is why I do it, because it's my passion.
I can feel that when we talk together, you're very passionate. Now, tell me, you started in 2010, and then your brand lived through the uprise of the independents, because currently the independent watchmaking is on fire, to say the least. We have seen many new brands coming up, and you are now coming up 2023. Why do you think it's the right time to do your so-called comeback? I have to be more precise. It's uninterrupted. It's not that you went away, but it was very quiet about your brand, and now you're restarting.
Yes, I had some personal issues to take care of, which were priorities. And at some point, well, they were resolved, and so I could come back to my passion. And 2023 is a good time because you see that there's a lot of demand, and it's a good time to be creative, bring some, let's say, innovative product, craftsmanship. It's in high demand. Our product have crossed the line of being useful pieces of equipment to pieces of art, and basically this is where people can express themselves, and the independents are bringing a lot of creativity in the sector. I mean, we have the traditional brands that also do lots of creative things, but the independents are more daring, and I like it. I like the fact of being independent and being able to do what you feel that you want to do, not be stuck in a code by a marketing study or something like that. You can express yourself fully.
But now I'm getting into facts and figures a little bit, because I introduced myself as being the analyst of the Swiss watch industry. So I'm going to challenge you a little bit.
Go ahead.
So what makes you think that we need another brand? And I give just a few figures. There are 5 brands in the Swiss watch industry which control more or less half of the market, 53% to be precise. 15 brands, 75%. And when we are up to 25, we are above the 90%. The whole consolidated sales of the independents is less than 1%. We were just talking about that before, yes. 0.8. I am a passionate person about watches, so I love what you do, but at the end of the day, it's about business as well. So what do you think, you don't have to talk figures. I want to hear from you what you think that you're bringing to the market.
Well, we bring a product that is produced in small volumes, it's exclusive, and at the end of the day, I think there is demand, and from people, collectors that have all the traditional product, all the models that we know that are the most famous ones, but at the end of the day, what we bring is a different product where people who are collectors, they like to have something that others don't have, and the exclusivity. And on top of that, we are craftsmen, so we also do a lot of customization. I mean, the watch is a work of art. So we do a lot of personalization, which has to go through me because I'm the final creator. I'm not going to make a product that I don't like, but we offer something that is easily customizable, or it's an object that is a symbol of a personality, of an individuality. So we are very exclusive, and I think there is demand for this type of product, as we see for independence.
How do you start you're saying that your brand, right, it's a vulgar word to talk about brands and marketing and branding, etc. But at the end of the day, we are all brands. François Paul Journe is a brand, Kari Voutilainen is a brand.
Yes.
So how do you start your creative process, and do you, at any point when you start thinking about a new product or a new concept of a movement or a watch as a whole, do you have in mind anything about how many you're going to sell, or is it pure passion?
It's mostly pure passion. I create something that I think people are going to like. Of course, the main compass I have is my own taste, but I'm creating something that I hope people are going to enjoy and want. And branding is important, yes, everything is important, but for independence, the product is the key. So we put most of our devotion to making sure that the product is to the standards we set for ourselves. That's what it is.
You anticipated my question, because I was going to ask you if you think that it's more important to have the best product or the best branding, but you just answered the question.
Well, because at some point when I started, somebody told me, you put too much effort in the product, you should have put more effort into marketing. And I was like, I came from communication. I said, yes, it's true. I'm treating myself badly in terms of communication, but the product is what I want to put the accent on. I want it to be perfect the way I want. So I had to put, it's complicated to make a watch. It's not like easy and there, a watch with, then you do your own movement, you design it. There's so many things that come into consideration. At the end of the day, you hope that the product will generate buzz by itself somehow. But you have to go into the branding, you have to go into the marketing, you have to go into the social networks and communication. But
I think you do a pretty good job already. You're saying that you are not doing too much in terms of marketing, but you're already a lot better than many people I have worked with. The one experience I do all the time is when you meet the watchmaker the first time, he talks only about products, and sometimes he forgets to talk about himself and to talk about the fact that he wants to fulfill a dream or a vision of his watchmaking.
Yes, absolutely. So I have my own vision. It's I like complication, but I'm really into a kind of a holistic perspective. So many people attract attention to this complication, this thing, but the overall product is incoherent. I don't find it beautiful. I want to make a product that is coherent. We were case makers. In 300 years of history, we have done everything. We've done jewelry, we've done cases, we've done industrial watchmaking, craftsmanship, everything. So the point is that I want a final product that is really coherent and not just one detail or something like that. So, and then I have a vision where my take is aesthetics. So the shape of my movement, this is a very long process to find the perfect shape of every bridge, every screw, every part, and then you finally have the final product. You start, you don't even see what the final thing is going to be at the end. You just have a feeling, and then as you go through it, it comes together. And then that's how you fulfill your vision somehow.
Tell us a little bit more how, when you design a new movement or a new product, tell us about what you're using, what the tools you're using, or how the methodology is. What are you working with outside people? Do
Yes.
you, yeah?
So I work basically on my own and I subcontract everything. But then the way I start the process is I start by looking into symbolism, into my history. I have 9 generations before me, so I have to write myself in, and I have to be correct with my own codes of my family. So this is something, for instance, this is a twin barrel. I did a twin barrel to pay a homage to my grandfather, who was the first to put a twin barrel in a wristwatch in the 1960s. It was called the Favre Twin Power. And so I started my...
So you are from the Favre family?
Yes, we are the founders of Favre, which our tradition started with the first Abraham Favre in 1718, and after 4 generations there was an association of family in 1815, the Favre and the Lebas, which became later in next generation a marriage. So we definitely got connected, and from then, from 1815 until 1977, our tradition was passed under Favre-Lebas. And in the 1970s, in the quartz crisis, my grandfather died not unexpectedly, and so the family sold the group, and my father continued as a watchmaker, as a supplier, and me, when I came in, I decided I want to do it under my name.
So what did you take over from the Favre-Lebas legacy? Do you feel that you have a commitment to that? You just spoke about the twin barrel, which obviously was put, not invented, but because we know that in some pocket watches of the 19th century we already had twin barrels, but on a wristwatch it was the first time. You're correct?
Time. Yes.
What other things you might perpetuate through your own brand?
Well, it's a bit different because Favre-Lebas was in a different segment of the market. When I decided to relaunch my tradition, I wanted to do fine watchmaking, very high-end. I want to be symbolic. I want to find, when I base my design on some codes that we had, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I have to put my own impulsion. It's my interpretation. I have to appropriate myself this history, so I can play with my history. I don't have real obligation at the end because I have already done that. I've already ensured the next generation. So now I'm a bit more free to express myself in terms of watchmaking. So I start from historical something, but then I choose complication or development, and then I do it my way.
So it's an interesting mix because most of the time when you have an independent watchmaker coming up, basically you start from a white sheet of paper.
Yes.
It reminds me of Laurent Ferrier, basically, who wanted to pay tribute to the Patek Philippe of the nicest era of Patek. Now you are paying tribute and to the legacy of Favre-Lebas, but at the same time, you don't feel that you have this frame that hinders you to go for new ways of creating.
No, in fact, if you want to be creative, you have to break that frame. You have to free yourself. And one of the advantages I have is I'm not the traditional watchmaker. I didn't do this, watchmaking school for 4 years and got that diploma. But that frees me in terms of creativity to put my own code and put my own impulsion and be more creative because I'm not framed, basically. I haven't been formatted. So when I design something, I pay attention to, of course, my history, I know the watchmaking industry, but I can also put my own impulsion in terms of finishing, decoration, shape of the bridge, things like that.
So what can we expect in terms of, now we have seen your twin barrel, you have, tell me again the name of...
Quantième à grand affichage rotatif.
Okay, which is a very playful way of showing the date. We know that we have had big dates from a German watch brand, which I love, which is Lange und Söhne. Came up with the big date. So it's you chose to have a playful way to show an indication which is century old.
Yes.
So what could we expect next?
Well, next is going to be maybe a bit different, more, I would say, open work. The next phase is going to even more research in terms of the shape of the movement. It's going to be, again, more open work in front and in the back. And there's a lot of symbolics behind it, but also playing really with the finishing of the watch. The decoration, which was a cleaning process but became an art, is typically something I like to explore in, because people do it in a certain traditional way, but there's ways to explore again in that sense. In terms of the shape of the watch, same things. So we have some nice products coming up, for sure. Yes. With interesting complication. You talked about the date. It's a useful complication. You use it. You know, we're talking about the relevance of mechanical watchmaking in the era of smart devices. The date is useful. The next complication has to do with proposed to a tourbillon, which is somehow a beautiful complication, but irrelevant in a wristwatch because it was invented for pocket watch, which were stuck in 2 positions. So the tourbillon would counterfere. But the next complication we do is something that has to do with precision, but more relevant for a wristwatch, we think.
I think we agree that since the invention of quartz 1967 and the first wrist watch with a quartz movement 1969.
Beta 21.
Yes.
We were part of it.
Yes. So I think we agree that since then the relevance of a mechanical watch as an instrument is gone, but...
Yes and no, because it is reliable. It is reliable. At the end of the day, I have watches in my collection. They're hundreds of years old. I wind them, and they tell the time. And you know, electric device, everything that's electric, it doesn't have this nobility, because at some point the battery dies, and you're left with a brick. You know, your phone, same thing. So how to say, the relevance of mechanical watchmaking, it always works, no matter what, any conditions.
That's a good point. Do you think that there was a big debate a few years ago, and I was amongst the people who thought that the young generations wouldn't be attracted anymore to watches about 10 years ago, I have to admit. There is a small brand in California which came up with a smartwatch. It was Apple, launched in 2015, and we know now that they are producing huge quantities, very successful. And when I was traveling and looking at the wrist of people, I was seeing more and more of those smartwatches. Yes, it seems now that the zenith of that growth is gone, apart from Apple and Samsung. And now we are seeing that the young generation is getting attracted again to mechanical watches. The COVID period has made it possible for people to have more time at home, so they got literate about watchmaking, and we are seeing them coming back to traditional mechanical watchmaking. So that goes towards your direction.
Yes, this is interesting, and this is something we were discussing before, because the Swiss watch industry is breaking record numbers, but since the arrival of the Apple Watch, the market share has fell at incredible pace, and you see all these people wearing the smartwatch, but I think it has a positive effect for us, because in fact maybe there were people that were not wearing watches at all, and then they have this smartwatch, and I see a lot of people who have a mechanical watch and an Apple Watch. You see that very often, because the mechanical watch is a jewel. It's something that is, you know, a statement, and the other one, of course, has smart functions, which in the future, I mean, it's going to make the traditional mechanical watch look irrelevant.
I'll give a few numbers for hopefully the few people watching us online or later on. So from 2000 to 2022, we had a drop of the volume of Swiss watch-made watches sold worldwide of about 47%, to be exact. So we went down for about 30 million watches sold every year, Swiss-made, of 1 billion watches sold a year worldwide. So we're already niche in the niche. From 2000 to 2022, that part fell 47%, as I said, to about 15.3 million. 2022, there is one watch coming out, which is the Moon's watch. It does a huge splash, and they sold 1 million last year. If we hadn't sold that million of Moon's watches, plus the increase of production at Rolex, we would have even a minus of 50,000 pieces exported. So we are at low levels, historical low levels. We are the niche of the niche. We are back to the volumes that the Swiss watch industry was making in the 1940s. So the average price is continuously increasing. It has sped up in terms of pace of growth, that's for sure. So 2021 was a record year, 2022 was a record year, 2023, I'm not thinking I take a big risk, even though things are cooling down now in the watch industry, we will have another record year. But that brings us back to the importance of smartwatches. Tell me a little bit how you see that. You said, okay, there are arrogant people in the Swiss watch industry who are saying smartwatches are not watches, so we are not comparing at all. We are still selling, we are still world leaders in the high end, which is true. About 96% of the high end of luxury watches are Swiss made. By Farr or Swiss owned in the case of Lange & Söhne and a few other luxury brands. So tell me how you see that. Could you imagine one day have a watch which would allow to converge the two technologies, so the mechanical?
Well, you know I have, but my vision on that, yes, I found that the Swiss watch industry, and it happened in the 70s with quartz, and then it's happening again with new technology coming up, and most of brands, if you talk about smart technology, they don't want to have anything to do with it. And I don't understand. Because there are potential utilities and the relevance of the micromechanics at the level we are doing. You were mentioning Rolex, but this level of manufacturing excellence is, you cannot find it anywhere else. This ability to work the metal and the matter like we do in Switzerland there's nobody else. And so we can do this. I think micromechanics have their place in the future if we know how to use them and make them relevant again. And therefore it means making useful products. Not, you know, we're talking about the chronograph. Chronograph was useful 100 years ago, but today nobody uses a chronograph. So the watchmakers...
I do.
You do? But when do you use it? For what?
Never.
Okay. And I feel that, honestly, I think that they have, the Swiss watchmaking industry is a bit arrogant and has its head in the sand. And at some point, we'll have to react. And the only reaction we have seen came from the Swatch Group, and compared to the Apple Watch, was interesting endeavor, but not sexy at all. And I think it was a failed attempt. So I think the watchmakers should look at the future and imagine that they have a bright future using mechanics, but combining with electronics, still making it beautiful. It's all possible. We had come up with a product that was in that sense, but we have put that on the side because we're concentrating on mechanics. But it's all part of the passion for this industry. The love for this industry pushed me personally to break my brain to find ways for the future of this industry because I love it so much. If it's not me, if it's Rolex that does it, that's fine, but we have to find ways to go and step into the future because we have a role to play.
I find it very interesting to see the Gen Zs walking around with vintage watches of the 1960s, 70s, I have my son, he's 18, he's very proud, he has his first serious watch, which is an Omega Speedmaster Professional, the Moon watch.
Yes.
And it's very interesting to see how they look at each other, because a few years ago they were not interested at all at wearing a watch at all, because
Yes.
they were asking me, why would I wear a watch on my wrist? So you are very confident that we are managing again to have that relationship with the new generation of buyers.
It's surprising, in fact, because I didn't expect that, but you have very young people who are passionate, they know a lot. I mean, you have the internet, social networks, so suddenly if you have a hobby and you start getting interested, you find a lot of information, and so they were very well informed. And so it's true that you have a crowd of young generation that love this product, because we make products that have a soul. A watch, it feels like a little machine. This doesn't, you see? So these objects are also, these vintage watches have so many, you know, they've lived, they have a history, they have a history in the movement, the way it was made, and I see the young generation, yeah, loving these vintage watches.
Let's talk about a little bit how you connect with the Gen Z and the millennials before, but now it's the Gen Z generation coming up. And we were talking before that you are not a marketing brand, but the love, the passion comes for the product. But at the end of the day, you just said it, they get literate online, they
Correct.
read about how a watch works, etc. So the importance of social media, again, we can share our experiences, because 2010, when we launched Laurent Ferrier, Instagram wasn't existing, Facebook was more or less interesting, but it was very slow and heavy to manage. Now we have a guy like Carlo Naldi sitting here who sends every other minute a video, a post somewhere on Instagram. Is that part of your strategy? Are you going to increase that, or you say, I'm like Philippe Dufour, I do my stuff, smoking my pipe somewhere in a valley in Switzerland, and...
No, I love this technology first, so of course I'm going to use it. And for small brands, it's like there are incredible platforms. I mean, before you had to have an incredible marketing budget to put insertions in magazine and all that stuff, and all these social networks are amazing. And in fact, if you talk to the right people, the right influencers or bloggers, and they start liking your products, they carry it on. You know, it's a very powerful word of mouth, as you can imagine.
But at the same time, it's interesting to see that the power that the social media took. Okay, we talk Instagram, we talk blogs. A long time ago, we had those forums, which are gone now, Purists Pro and what was it called? I forgot. Anyways, so we had those forums, then we went on to the blogs, but at the same time, it's interesting to see that the people are really passionate. They go to Dubai Watch Week, they go to the Sierra in Mexico, they come here to meet people like you, the Geneva Watch Days just last week. But I saw that people, what they really want is to be here, physical presence. That's
it's the power of community, in fact. That's what social network bring. These people connect together, they exchange together. As a brand, I'm not a professional of communication on social network, but I have the accounts, and you can engage directly with people who love your brand. So it's very nice, actually. And for people who are interested, when they engage, they get a response. They can communicate with the brand, and it's actually very, it's an interesting tool to use to talk to people who like your work.
For sales as well? How do you see the future of the sales of small brands? Of course, if you're Richard Mille, we know how they do their business today. It's 100% direct to consumer through their own boutiques. And you have a brand like Rolex, not to name them, 1,500 point of sales worldwide, 1,540 to be precise. But we are seeing also at Rolex that they are reducing the number of points of sales. We have seen the big news that they bought Bucherer. No one expected that except I was saying it's 4 years, and everybody was telling me that it would never happen, and I always say never, because I think it's a logical move, and people seeing that Rolex got into CPO, the next step was logical, and I'm making the next announcement. It was not Rolex's last acquisition in the retail. I'll tell you there will be more to come. Stay tuned. But we are not at Rolex. We are at
for us,
at Laurent.
For us, it's different. I'm not even. We're so exclusive. We're mostly direct to customer as well. I mean, not with a store, with the point of sale. Of course, we're going to use the technology if we can sell watch. We see that now people are buying, because the early days of the internet, people were saying nobody's going to buy a watch above $5,000 on the Swiss franc on the internet, and we see now that people are buying very expensive products, and it's working fine. So it's definitely a way to sell your product. We're going to use it.
But where is the brick and mortar shop? Where do you see that? Where do you see the future of the relationship? Because we said before, social media is coming up. You can communicate all the time. You can sell directly. You can engage directly. The touch points with the end consumers are multiplied. But at the end of the day, the magic happens when you have the guys in front of you. I always remember I was with an independent, I'm not going to tell the name, at Basel World, and the two guys had made their fortune with Bitcoins, and they were also big watch collectors. But when we got out of Basel World, both of them told me, Olivier, the best thing today we did was to meet with da-da-da-da-da, because there was a magic moment with him, and we were just sitting, having a drink, and looking and talking about watches.
Yes,
would you agree with that?
I totally agree. In fact, this is how I sold most of my watches. Is people are collectors, they're passionate, so you spend a time with them, you exchange about watchmaking, and they can learn, and it's the best way to engage with your clients, and you get into this personal connection, and they can discover, let's say, the less known industry, because I take them out of the, not to the big manufacturer, I take them into the places where you see the guy in his workshop, which has old style, and they meet the fiber of this industry, and that's what is cool, in fact.
But now you have to answer the question: where does the brick and mortar, the mama and papa
honestly,
shop?
I don't know, because I see the way some stores are behaving, and it's basically pushing customers away because they're so arrogant. And I've had loads of people who are collectors that told me that. And again, I think as you see, the whole landscape is changing. Basel World closed. Now we have these regional shows that the brand are doing, or the groups are doing among themselves. So this direct to customer engagement, I think, is going to evolve like that. Brick and mortar, yes, but I don't know how the model is going to evolve in the future, because this is not really my specialty, honestly.
So you are not very confident, if I get you right, you're not confident that, because at this, we are seeing very polarized evolutions. We're seeing on one side that the brands are trying more and more to get direct to consumer, digital or physical. But what we see also is the huge success of the AP houses, Patek Philippe Salon. So the physical encounter has a role to play.
It does. It definitely does. On top of it, if you go to a market, you have people that are locals. They know their customers. They know their crowd. So of course you have to go through retailers, and they're very important in the process. But as you know, also for independents, it's a different ball game, because you have to find the right partner. You have to find somebody who truly believes in your product, because basically it's real estate. It's you or something else, and you want him to take your watch, but you want him to sell your watch, not just to put it in store. So it's for us, it's a very difficult strategy for independents to start this partnership that are solid, and we feel confident that it's going to develop.
So what's your strategy as Laurent Favre of Favre et Fils? What do you do? Do you go out there and you talk to people, and at the end of the day you say, okay, I can sell 100% of my production directly, so I don't need any retailer, or I go for the retailers who are making the effort of trying to connect with the younger generation?
Yes, I will definitely go to these retailers and seek some partnership, but they have to be solid. It means that it is not. It has to be good for me, and it has to have a kind of a forward-looking strategy where we collaborate together. But I have also the opportunity to sell directly, and this is also something that I'm definitely going to keep on doing, because first I like it, I travel, I go, I meet my clients. This is something also very important. When you go to a market, you have to go there and come back, because it's not just going there, sell your watches and forget about your clients. So we're not going to go all over the place. We're going to go to selected markets, selected crowds, but we're going to make sure we take good care of them.
So next steps for the relaunch, can you be a little bit more specific? What are you going to do?
Well, we're going to develop our commercial activity with Carlo Naldi, as you said before, and we're gonna start with let's say still exclusive volumes, but we're gonna slowly progress to a level that we find acceptable, but that's still manageable.
What is acceptable and manageable, as you just said?
In a span of 2-3 years, we want to be in the 200 pieces range, but not more than that. We want to keep this exclusive aspect, and also it has to be, and this is why I'm working with Carlo here, it has to be a human experience. It has to be fun.
Are you sensing that at some point, if you were to say, I would like to go, my ultimate goal is to go to 1,000 pieces a year. Maybe. Would you lose your soul in there?
1,000 is a good number. I think it's a good threshold for an independent, but it entails a lot of investments in terms of, you have to be able to produce them.
When does the brand lose its soul, an independent brand? I'm not talking about Omega, Rolex, Longines, etc. We are talking about the independent brands. When does it potentially lose its soul?
Well, you feel it in the product somehow. When sometimes some brands are being bought, the founder is not here, and suddenly the identity, and you see that it's just purely commercial. When you lose the passion of the product and it's all just oriented towards making money, then you start losing the passion. And we've seen that with some brands that are pretty well known, where I knew the original watchmaker. He was a small watchmaker. He had this vision, and then big group takes over, and they make I don't know, thousands, hundreds of thousands of pieces, and the thing completely loses the soul of the founder.
But it's interesting to see. I perfectly. We are on the same page. We can name them, Frank Müller,
Roger
Dubuis, etc., etc. But it's interesting to see now that the #1 of luxury products in the world, LVMH, is relaunching an ultra niche brand under its original name, Gérald Genta, and that they think, and they will relaunch Daniel Roth as well. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to see that they think that there is a potential there. Don't you think?
It's interesting, but it's the name, but it's true that we have to see what they come out with, because it's tricky. I think it's tricky, and if they don't come out with something that is at the level, and we've seen with some of the models of the designer you mentioned, it's been very difficult to get out of that. If you take the Royal Oak, they've been trying to make new model, the code 59. It's nice, but in fact, at the end of the day, it doesn't have I would say the charisma of the Royal Oak, of the original designer. So I don't know. In fact, everything is possible, but it has to be well done. It has to have soul. So they have to go look, understand the person, who he was, and who he would be, what he would be doing today. In fact, and they have to go through this soul process. Otherwise, it's going to be irrelevant.
So you are very confident that because you are the direct descendant to a very long legacy of watchmakers, that your story will come over as being authentic, as being genuine, or what's your thought about that?
Honestly, at the end of the day, I hope people understand my authenticity, but I don't care, because it's a path of life. I've chose the life of making my own tradition. I took it as a mission, and it's a lot of sacrifices. You know, when sometimes we show our watches, we say we've taken the tears, the blood, and the sweat. It's not just a professional project. It's a real human path, and it's something that I do with passion, and it is me. That's it. So people believe it or not, I cannot be something else than who I am.
It's your story.
It's my story, and I have done what was needed to do to honor my ancestors, which I have always in my mind. And so now I would say now it's the cool part, because it's the fun part. It's me. It's not just talking about the 9 guys before me. Now it's talking about who am I? What am I? What is my take on this industry? What is my take from design perspective, movement perspective, watchmaking perspective? And so it's a lot of fun, because I love to create this product, and I'm passionate.
So the next step will be to make sure that the 11th generation will be there?
The 11th generation has already started. Is at 6 years old, working on a Unitas, so he's already in there, for sure. So it's going to continue. It's going to continue.
That's your dream. That's your
my dream.
ultimate goal.
I will not force it on anybody. If my son doesn't want to do it, he doesn't have to do it. But I would hope that he will carry it on, for sure. But I'm making everything that needs to be done in my generation so he can do it. But he will have to also go through his learning curve, his learning process. No, it's not just you inherit something. You have to learn it. You have to initiate yourself. And it's a long journey, but it's a fascinating one.
Thank you very much, Laurent Favre. Is there anyone wanting to ask any questions to Laurent about his future, his watches, his vision of watchmaking, or any other questions on the independent watchmakers? We're here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Olivier. It was a pleasure having this discussion with you.
Of course, congratulations, but there is your dream watch. What's your favorite watch model?
You mean not my watch?
Not your watch. Out of your...
of 500 years of watchmaking.
Exactly.
Well, there's a lot of them, actually, that the watch that I love. I was discussing, actually, when I was coming here with Carlo, there's one piece I really loved. It was an opus made for Harry Winston by Emmanuel Boucher. And that watch is unbelievably beautiful. Voila. This is the other watch, the only other watch that I love. But it's an interesting story, because when Harry Winston decided to make watches, they did it with my father. So all the codes you see in these watches have been designed by a guy called Jean-Claude Guette, who was the head of creation at Piaget for years, and a wonderful man. And he's the one who designed all the codes, and my father was manufacturing these pieces. I have actually the number 0 of the ultimate timepiece, which had a bi-retrograde perpetual calendar developed by Jean-Marc Viderecht at the time, even before Agénor. And yes, this whole story of watchmaking of Harry Winston is quite dear to me.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.